Yep, okay. I'm feeling pretty happy this morning. A little bit nervous about this, but I'm not sure exactly how it works. But I've got Ben here, so I'm okay. He knows what he's doing. I'm feeling fairly happy and steady and content. Had a really good weekend. Lots of connections with lots of people, and our house church for the first time in months. Practically everyone was there, and we all had lunch together. So that was good. I felt happy about that. And then checking in with my CO2 partner this morning. And that always, gives me a good start to the day. So I'm, feeling happy and content and ready for what's next. So I'm in.
Yeah, cool. Well, I'm checking in as feeling. I think I'm feeling happy about this. This is no worries. I believe I understand what we're doing. So
I believe you do too.
Yeah, only because I just read the instructions then, so that was good. But we're just. I woke up really early this morning, so I got up at like 5 o'clock, and then got lots of stuff that I need to get done. So I'm feeling happy about that. And we're going out this afternoon with our homeschool group, or this morning, and that'll be really fun too. So I'd say I'm happy, peaceful. On my way back to Joy. Yeah. So that's me, I suppose. I'm in.
So is there any reason why you don't feel like you...
No, it's just been a thing that's going on lately.
Yeah.
I think it's just one of those new things that I'm doing in life.
It's been hectic.
Hectic lives. And like we thought homeschool would be less hectic, but I think it is way less hectic than normal school. But it is still, we've got a lot of stuff going, and every single day I've got I'm not used to having a full schedule.
Yeah.
And But yeah, it's lots of new things, and when lots of new things are happening, I find it sort of not frustrating, but like until I get my head around it, it's sort of a bit difficult, and that's just sort of what I'm in at the moment. Yeah. I asked God about it, and He said, "Yeah, it's just part of life. So just relax into it. Make sure you keep talking to me about things, everything, and it's just okay." So I'm okay with it as well.
That's good. Yeah, it's great when you hear stuff like that directly from God. It just changes your whole perspective. That's great. Thank you. Okay.
You want to start? We'll just start talking about our beginnings of our Luke 10 journey, and that started with you, so you might as well talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I first connected to Luke 10 when I was living in Thailand. I don't know how long we'd been there. Oh, well, quite a few years, I think. And we actually were moving towns. We were moving from one town we were living into the town where Ben and Nung and his family were living. And before we went there, I was at a conference and this guy was speaking, and he was saying all this stuff, and I'm sitting there thinking, oh my goodness, this is God speaking to me.
What conference was it?
Oh, it was
I remember you talking about
Pan Asia conference in Phuket. Yeah. And I thought, this is God talking to me about what we need to do when we get to Longsak. And he'd set out these 5 different steps for me, and it seemed like a bit of a 5-year plan, and that's actually the way that it worked out. So one of the things that he said to us, the first thing he said was, don't hide yourselves behind the walls of a church, be in the town is your church, the people in that town are your congregation. So the first thing we did when we got to town was hook up with a local church, because a friend of mine in Chiang Mai had said, oh, there's a pastor just starting a church there, and he's a really hard man. You won't really like him, but I'll connect you.
Now talking about Knight.
Talking about Pastor Knight, yeah.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah, and he and I hit it off, and we got on like a house on fire. We had the same heart, the same vision, and I got talking to him, and God had given him the exact same plan how to reach the town, just using like different words, but it was exactly the same 5 steps.
And he's such a hard guy, right?
Obviously. Oh, so hard. Yeah, so hard to get.
He's the nicest bloke in the world. It's crazy.
And one of the people who I would say was probably a real like Jesus follower. You know, he really sought God and sought Jesus and what he wanted from his life.
But also caught up in lots of traditional rules and stuff at the same time.
Yeah. So it's a bit of, it's a bit of a tussle for him, and it still is, I think, because we actually ended up teaching him all the LK10, practices, and he used them sometimes. But I think the, like organisation of the church still overtakes him. But anyway, that's a bit of a long way around. Yeah, so we ended up going to his church, and we worked with him for a couple of years, and it was just an amazing experience. We just got to meet so many people and connect with so many people, like in our town, but also in other villages and other towns as well. But then people in the church got really upset with him, and they kicked him out. So we still kept going to the church, even though we really didn't want to. And they were just sort of floundering. And we said to them one night, let's just have a prayer meeting, and all the elders of the church and, the people that were running it and us went, and we were praying.
And that was like 4 people.
Yeah, 4 people. Yeah.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, 4 or 5.
It was a tiny church.
Yeah, well, there were only like about 20 people in the whole church. And like we were talking to them and saying, well, like, how are we going to reach the town? What are we going to do? You guys are the Thai people, you know how Thai people think, what they respond to and things like that, like how are we going to reach them? And they just like looked at us with a blank stare and said, well, it might be your part to reach the town, but it's definitely not ours. And then from that moment on, we thought, well, why are we here?
Yeah.
And that's when we left.
Yeah.
And then we started a house church, which we didn't know anything about. But the reason we did it was because we thought, oh, well, let's just look at the Bible and see what the Bible says. And it talked about house church, back in the beginning and stuff. We thought, okay, well, we'll do that.
Yeah. And that church, I just want to get, before we leave the idea of that church was, it had a lot of good things at the beginning of it.
Yeah.
It was like the first church in the first place that a missionary went to, right?
It was it was the town that the first Pentecostal missionaries went to in Thailand.
Yeah.
And they set up the original church.
How many? It was like over 100 years ago.
Yeah, over 100 years
ago.
ago.
So it was an interesting place. And back in those days, the province that we lived in was in Phetchabun. That was like, they used to say, if you go there, you die, because you just get malaria and die. And that happened to the guy who started it too, I think.
Yeah, and his family.
Yeah, his family.
His wife and 3 of his kids or something.
Yeah, so they all died there.
And they're all buried there in that town.
It's interesting. And it did a lot of good. Like everybody in the town knows that church, all the old people. And they're like, oh, yeah, I went there when I was a kid. Yeah. And so it affected people. Some people were Christians because of it. But, it wasn't all bad.
No, it definitely wasn't bad. And even, like now, those people that have connected with that church way back in the day, even like Nung's dad.
Yeah, he has stories. My wife's dad, my father-in-law, has stories of going to church there when he was a boy.
Yeah.
And
So you just don't give up hope that, that's still going to have an impact on them even in the, later years of their lives. So, lots of good things happen.
Yeah. For me, even being able to bring up the idea that any traditional church is good is like there's a bit of it's taken me a while to get back to that.
I've got to say, you saying that right now surprised me.
Yeah, because like if anyone doesn't like traditional church, it's me. But it's you hear the stories from other people and talking about it, and I would never go back there. I wouldn't go. I would go there to see these people, but I would never go into a church service there because it's not fun.
No.
But I can recognize what good has happened there before.
Yeah, definitely.
So wherever we were left off.
Well, just saying that we left that church and looked in Acts and saw that they met together as small groups in homes, and we decided to do that. And in the beginning, it was just me and my husband and Ben and his family, and we had lots of ups and downs and fights. And Ben was running a gym at that stage, so we said, let's just open up the gym and invite people to come on a Sunday night. So that's where it started. And it went sort of fairly well. Yeah,
it went super well. I kind of, and they were all like tend to be answers, like because we talk about the tend to be in LK10 with and it just happened. It was spontaneous,
Yeah,
like we like
yeah.
to say here. So we didn't do anything, and we had like a lot of people who became super real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was. Oh, I've forgotten what I was going to say now. It was about the church. That's right. Yeah. So we'd been going for a while, and we didn't really know what we were doing, but it went well, and people were coming and things like that.
And I remember it started off with Nathan. He visited us, and he was there at the very beginning.
Oh, yeah.
And that was good too.
Yeah, good to have him there.
Yeah, and we did, and we liked playing music and stuff in the beginning. And it hasn't really happened in Australia, but yeah, we always used to play music because everyone loved it.
Yeah. So even like I was saying, we still didn't really know what we were doing. And I was looking on Facebook one day, and I was just like scrolling through, and there was an article that popped up that a friend of mine who'd been a missionary in Thailand for 50 years at that time had posted. And it was titled, "What's Happening to the Duns of Church?" And I just flipped past it and didn't worry about it. And then I thought, I've got a mate in Australia who's done with church. He'll never set foot in church ever again. I thought, I'll just go back and read it. So I went back and I read it. And as I was reading it, I thought, this has nothing to do with my friend. This is for us. This is for our church, for our house church here and now. And it was an article in Charisma magazine that John White had done an interview with them or something, and his email address was there. So I emailed John and got in touch with him, and then I did Luke 10 back in the day when John would just send you the lesson and you do it and write back and say, I'm finished, can I have another one? And I think I got through it in about a week or something. I was so excited by what I was reading and what I was doing. And then I got on to him and said, I finished, wow. And then he invited me to be part of his leader team, which I joined. And then I realized, I'm the only girl in this team, and I'm the only one that's not, highly qualified and academic. And I thought, sometimes I don't even know what they're talking about. But they just love me and accepted me for who I am. And, they just became my favorite people in the whole world. And they just became my lifeline in Thailand, because we were quite isolated in the town that we lived in. We were really the only foreigners that lived there. And there were some old, European men married to young Thai girls, but we were literally the only ones that were seen around town the whole time. So, these guys just saved my life on so many occasions. And I know on leader teams, a couple of times I just spent the whole hour and a half crying, and they just spent, the time just loving me and, getting me back to joy and where I needed to be. So, it was just a life-changing connection for me, and it has been ever since. So that was the beginnings of Luke 10 in Thailand.
Yeah. I remember, I was just, as we were talking about, I was just remembering some of the things that we did at the beginning, and it was fun.
Yeah, it was great fun.
Where we went, because every Saturday they had a night market, and that was when Nathan was there.
Yeah.
And we used to just go in there and play music and then do free barbecues for people, and we were still must have been half connected with the other churches then.
We were, yeah.
So we were doing that sort of stuff, and that was part of the reason that because we started just doing it. We found the mayor. I think we talked to the mayor or the person who, and he hooked us up, and then let us have a spot, and then we just started playing music, and it was just us, and people were coming up and talking to us. It was really fun.
Yeah, it was good.
It was a spontaneous thing. We felt like it just felt like we should do it for some reason, and it was fun.
Yeah.
And then
connected us to a lot of people.
Yeah, it did.
Town,
and just then we just kept growing from there, doing stuff like that. And we only did it once a month, I think.
Yeah,
but it was fun. And then somehow the other churches saw what we were doing, and they wanted to have, and they wanted in. And then they came in, and they just turned it to crap. It was just I remember them just making it so political and
so religious.
Yeah. Oh, you can't do this, you can't do that, and all that sort of stuff. So then we just see ya, and just left. So it was good. It was a good fun experience at the beginning.
Yeah.
But then we just had to we just sort of got spontaneously removed from it as well. Yeah. But it was I just remember doing that, and it was fun. It was fun at the time, and because the little gym that I had at the beginning was right in the middle of town, so it was just around the corner from it. So it was. I remember it being good fun times. It was nerve-wracking to do things in front of people, but it was also fun.
Yeah, no, it was good. Yeah, so that was the beginnings, and then God just connected us with different groups of people throughout the town. He like connected us with groups of teachers that worked in the public schools or the local council schools there. So we had a really good group of teachers and students that we were able to connect with, and all of them, like learnt the LK10 rhythms and stuff.
Yeah.
And we're even able to do it with students in class and things like that. And then we connected with a little private school where I spent a lot of time and did a lot of this stuff with the kids and the staff there. And what else did we do? Oh, we went into the local prison. That was really good fun. And all those guys went through Church 101, and like you sort of leave and things change and you think, oh, I wonder what happened. But I just always believe, like if you plant something like that into people, it's going to come back to them when they need it.
That was another thing that sort of I had in my heart for a long time that I wanted to go into the prison there. And then because years ago when we first started going to Thailand, we would go to to Karat, it's another city. And one of the pastors there used to have a prison ministry, and it was really fun. I remember doing that 20 years ago. And then I was trying to find a way in, and it was really hard. Like, it's not possible on our own. And then he just said, we must have talked to him or something.
Yeah.
And then he said, oh, yeah, I'll get you in there. And he talked to the bosses. He knows the bosses that run the whole system in the whole of Thailand. And then it just came down from the top that we were allowed in. And then we ended up going. And it was probably ended up doing it for 2 or 3 years.
Easy to.
Yeah. And then after we'd been doing it for a while, we found out that we were the only foreigners in Thailand that were allowed in to go into prisons on our own. We had no other Thai person with us. Because I speak fluent Thai, so we don't need translators everywhere we go. But it was we didn't know that. We just it was a pretty cool thing to learn about later.
Yeah.
And it changed and morphed and over the years, and we took teams in, and it was really fun because sometimes teams would visit us from Australia
and America.
Yeah.
All over the place,
We took some YWAM teams in. Yeah, it was cool. And so we just had lots of opportunities like that. And yeah, we taught Church 101. We went through it, and we taught probably to hundreds of people in there.
Yeah. So we went to the men's prison as well as the women. So we taught it to both, to the men and the women. And the women, we responded way better to it than the men. They just really got into it. And
it was a different setting too.
It was a different setting, yeah. But they were much more involved than the men. It was definitely harder in the men's prison. So yeah, like Ben said, probably hundreds of prisoners over the years have learnt the LK10 rhythms. And
I think because they're two different places. It's the same place inside the same prison, but the women are another separate prison inside there. And with the men, they used to come in and sit down, and it was more like a classroom setting.
Yeah,
but
there were so many.
Yeah, there's so many. But all within the ladies' part, there was only 300 ladies altogether. They were in a tiny little area, but it was harder in some aspects because it's so loud, and because in Thailand the prisoners, they have to work during the day, so whatever they're doing in there, knitting, I don't know what they do, making things, and then we would get a group of girls. We did do the whole group sometimes. That was fun with teams, sing songs with them. But then other times they would just break off the ladies who want to come, and we end up with 15 or sometimes
20,
less.
Yeah, sometimes up more. To 30.
Yeah, and then we can be more like a leader team or a house church where we can actually interact with everybody and everyone has a say. And that was fun. With ladies in prison in Thailand, they actually tell us what they're thinking.
Yeah,
and tell us stuff that's on their heart, and it's really sad sometimes, and a lot of the time. But we also got to visit some of the ladies after they've gotten out.
Yeah, and go
cool.
Visit their families for them while they were in there and things. I don't know if we were supposed to do that, but we did.
Can't get in trouble anymore.
No,
so sometimes they're like, "Oh, can you go see my son or find where they are, find out what's going on?" Yeah, because some of them are in there and they have no contact with their children anymore, and they've gone with other people, and they just have no idea. So it's super interesting that sort of thing happens. But it was a really it makes me remember going back into that, and then that was also a spontaneous in and a spontaneous out. We didn't do anything that was Like we didn't force things. I remember that was sort of probably the time that I started learning about not forcing things.
Yeah.
And it's okay for things to finish, and it's okay to move away from things when it's time. And that was something that I was learning when that happened. And then we could just walk away without feeling guilty. And,
you didn't really have a choice, because that was when we
didn't have a choice,
having to leave Thailand. So it just left Ben going in on his own, and that's not really a smart thing to do as a foreigner. So
even we always had to be really careful, because it's not really, you don't have to be careful with the prisoners. They were super cool.
Yeah.
But the guards can do anything to you. They'll stitch you up, and then you're in trouble. So we're always like having to pay real close attention. Yeah. And then they did a few things, and we had to change the way we did it. And so it's always, you could end up getting in trouble that way. So, but we had some really great experiences. I remember this one guy, he came up. I'd never seen him before, and then he just came and told us that he had just been arrested for murdering somebody. And he told us everything. And he just like shot him in the head. And then I got rid of him. But then it was a connection it was a crazy way, because we talked to this guy. He's a hill tribe guy. So up in the mountains, we had where we lived is really beautiful. Like up in the mountain. We're in the bottom in the valley in the town, but up in the mountains, they had a hill tribe, they're called Hmong people. So they originally they were original Mongolians, and I think they got pushed out by Genghis Khan back in the day, and so they just kept coming down south further and further. So they have a place in Thailand now, and we found out another story later on, that another couple of people that we're connected with, that we ended up meeting the guy he killed's daughter, and finding out, like, whoa, we know this guy. He actually came up to me and told me the whole story of how it happened when we were in prison one day. And then and
he was really
bad,
really upset, because he knew he'd done the wrong thing, and he was crying. It was really, and
he was fully on the wrong side of it. He just believed that he believed that this land was his, and it wasn't, and then so he shot him dead. And then we found out that we met the man he killed's daughter. And it was a really interesting story how it just happens. It didn't. I don't think it didn't mean anything. Like nothing big happened out of it, but it was just a interesting situation. But so, even just us talking about this, so many things are coming to mind. It's really crazy.
Like once we connected with LK10 and learned about the 10-2B prayer, that sort of changed everything for us too, because we started praying 10-2B and saying, well, God, just connect us with who you want to connect us with, bring across our paths the people that that you need us to connect with. And he gave us these school teachers. He gave us the jail. He gave us Not, the pastor, and like we had a big influence with him, because we went to towns and villages like all over the place, all over like northern Thailand, and like in the center where we were. And one of the weirdest things for me was he actually connected us with the like gay lesbian community in Thailand. So most of my friends while I were there were these gay girls, and it was just like this crazy experience. But they were the ones that I feel like God touched the most, whose hearts were actually changed by him, because they were just loved and accepted for who they were. And we weren't judging them or anything like that. And so many times they said, oh, like no one has ever loved us like this before. Like even our parents, they have not loved us like this. We just have never experienced anything like this. And we were able to build a really great community with those girls and input a lot into their lives. Like we had to leave Thailand. We were basically kicked out very suddenly. And, I don't know what's happening. I do know what's happening with them, because I'm in touch with them all the time. But as far as that stuff that we planted in their hearts, that Jesus planted in their hearts, I don't know where that's going or what's happening with that. But it was definitely something that was very real for them. And I just feel like, that's the sort of thing that God does, and he doesn't waste, and he's there when they need it.
Yeah.
So, that was a fun, interesting experience.
It was interesting because we that was part of my growing as well, having to deal with that because some of that my mindset was still like stuck in what you do, and that was from traditional church, all the lies I learned from as a child, and knowledge of what is it, the doctrine of knowledge and duty. Yeah, and then feeling guilty for not doing things, and like I said, I sort of didn't feel guilt from leaving having to leave the jail, but also I learned it was part of me learning how to not care what people have done or are doing, and it doesn't matter at all. And it's like I always used to say to myself, because obviously we all do bad things, and but what I've always say to myself, yeah, but that's way worse.
Yeah.
And so like, yeah, but yeah, I know that that's taught in traditional church too. That oh well, like take the log out of your eye before you can speak. But it's like it still doesn't happen like that in traditional church. They use what you do against you all the time. And so that was like that had soaked into me and it's who I was. And it took me years to lose that and be okay with. Oh yeah, but they're gay. It doesn't work like that. I'm like, yeah, it doesn't matter at all. But yeah, it is funny. And yeah, we're super good friends with them.
Yeah. And still talk most days that I do.
Yeah, you talk to Young all the time. But yeah, it's interesting that the path that we're taking on, and but I have memories of that too. Like everyone just coming around to your place and
always hanging out.
Yeah, because their home situations are difficult as well. Like there's so much pressure. And then and I guess that's something else that you can offer them, or we offered them, or you mostly, that there's no pressure to be anything else but yourself. And that's what Luke 10 does as well. There's no pressure, there's nothing at all. So super simple and no pressure.
And when I was talking to God, after that conference about going to Longsuck and living there, part of, like I said to him, like, what do we do? And he said to me, all I want you to do is love those people. And I got really excited because I thought, yes, I can do that. I can do that. He said, nothing else. You just love them. And then I'll do, like what I'm doing as well. And then I remember even when it was time to leave, I found it really hard. I was saying, God, what's going on? Like there's so much unfinished business here. And he said, but it's my business. It's not your business. So I'm confident being here, knowing that he's, still doing what he was always doing in Thailand. So that makes me really excited and happy and thankful.
Yeah. I just had something on the tip of my mind about where we were going. But that's but that idea of not having to do anything is everything now. And that's the idea of the 10 to be prayer and all that sort of stuff, and God doing the heavy lifting. And it's like that's just like everyday life for us now. We get it. It's like we don't have to do anything else. We don't have to like go out and preach on the street, even though some people feel like that's what they need to do, and God tells them to do it, and I'm sure it's effective for them. But for us, we don't have to. We just have to keep going, and no preaching, no teaching to people, just be ourselves, and I don't know, just keep going from there. But
and that's what I sort of felt, even coming back to Australia. Well, he hasn't changed that mandate for me, really. It's just love the people that I put across your path, and I can do that well, I think. So it works well for me. He just puts us, with the people that we need to be with, and
just in time.
Yeah. And for me, like I don't have any great plans into the future. I just like to just sit and listen and find out like what he wants me to do now, like what's the next thing you want me to do.
Yeah, next steps.
Because every time I've made plans, he's always changed them on me anyway. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So Thailand was a big adventure, and like probably definitely one of the highlights of my life. And I just love that we were able to like build community there for people and give people a place where they felt like they belonged. And I feel like that's what we're meant to be doing here too in Australia, now that we're all back in Australia.
And it started happening.
Yeah. Slowly, but
it's different. But it was slow there too.
Yeah.
It was like many years, and just looking back on it, it feels quick. But I was there for 20 years, just about. And then came back here. So we all you got pushed out a bit before us, but then you got pushed out just before all the government lockdowns and stuff. It was perfect timing for that. And then just the process of getting my wife's visa. That's a resident here in Australia now, and Thailand just it felt like doors were closing, even though I thought I would never leave, and I'm sad about that sometimes. Recently I've been thinking about it, but it's just, I just thought we'd be there forever, and that was my plan. And then I had no other choice really. Everything was just changing so much. It's in the bureaucracy over there, and government really does not like foreigners being there, and so that sort of like was yours too. It all changed up, so your visa sort of didn't work anymore. And mine I just keep getting more and more pressure on every year that I redo my visa. It just get more and more pressure, changing it continuously, having always trying to get bribes off this, and it's just a never-ending fight. And I just ended up hating it.
It's a shame because something that you love so much, you'd end up hating it. It didn't end like that for me, but what we're talking about.
I don't hate Thailand. I just hated the struggle of being there. I like Thai people haven't changed at all.
No,
it's exactly the same place. Except the government's becoming crazy. But
like talking about plans, like my plan was that I would be in Thailand for the rest of my life too. Like I thought that's all I could see in my future, and that's all I wanted really. But it was God that changed that, and it definitely happened. Like over a couple of years, I started to sense that, maybe he's saying it's time to get out of here.
And he'll start working on you way before it's meant to happen.
Because like really, if we hadn't been forced out, like I wouldn't have left. But coming back here to Australia, I know 100% that that's where God wants me now, and I can happily be here, and I miss everyone over there. I miss Thailand. I would go back at the drop of a hat, but I'm happy knowing that God's got them, and he's got a plan for them, so I can focus on what he wants me to do here now, and that just makes it so much easier. So
I don't know, maybe we should start talking about what's going on here now. What we've been doing here.
Well, that started while we were in Thailand, really.
I've only been not even here back here for a year, so
well, we've been back here for 3 years this week. Which is hard to believe, but anyway. But like we seem to have more impact on Australia when we're in Thailand than we're having.
But it was the situation of the world. It wasn't anything to do with us. It was just like because of what was happening with lockdowns and stuff. Australians, it pushed everybody into thinking about something different.
But we, like quite a few people, Australian people, have been through Church 101, and I would say easily 100 people, probably more now with our house churches and people that have come through there. So like it is growing in Australia, I think, and even if it's just the idea of being done with traditional church, that is definitely growing. A lot of people have been through Church 101, and then they just don't do anything about it anymore. They're not intentional with it anymore, and they don't think about it. But before we went live, I was just talking to Ben, and on a Monday night they have a little footy competition. They call it rug tag. It's like touch football. I don't know if you guys in America know anything about that, but our family sort of started playing. And the guys that run it, they were Christians, so.
And they've been to Thailand a lot.
Yeah, been there a lot.
Been through Church 101.
Yeah. And like in the middle, like at halftime, everyone gets together and they do a little devotion and things like that. But one of the things that this guy that's running it now, who has done Church 101, does is get everyone to check in. And I was just really encouraged to see that last week. All the teams got together and were checking in with each other and sharing their hearts, and so even that's another community that have been touched by LK10 that we had nothing to do with, really.
Exactly. So what were we talking about that? I forget what that's called, where it just starts spreading. The virus. The virus is spreading without us doing anything. and that's the point. Right?
Yeah, that's the way it's meant to be. And even we have a group of friends up on the Sunshine Coast, which is about an hour north of here, and they've all been through Church 101, and they use it in their little communities wherever they are. They've all got their own little groups all over the place, and they use it there. And then a couple of those guys are getting married in a couple of weeks' time. They're moving way up north, a 10-hour drive from here. And, they're using it up there too. So, it does just spread spontaneously, doesn't it? Like that benevolent virus. That's exciting to see. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what else are we doing in Australia that it's not as exciting as Thailand because we've just started here.
Yeah.
But, it does feel like sometimes nothing's going on.
Mm.
But, we've got that stuff happened at the beginning when we were here. It was really exciting. And we're still connected with them. We used to do it once a month, get together. But it's just everyone's so busy at the moment that it hasn't happened.
And people have moved to different places and things as well. Yeah.
But that's also a good thing.
Oh, it's a great thing, yeah.
And then we have our house church. And it goes pretty good. It's just a small group of us.
Mm.
But, we're definitely starting to feel like we are like a family in the best sense of the word, working our way towards that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And
we've had our ups and downs along the way, and just thankful for the things that we've learned through LK10, like how to resolve conflict, speak a listener and all that sort of thing, because we have had to use that a few times.
We had to use it a lot in Thailand.
Yeah.
That's why we've had a lot of experience with dealing with crazy things happening, and I had to learn about that in facilitator training when I was learning to facilitate leader teams, and now I've had so much experience, it's not scary anymore.
No, that's right. Yeah.
And that's the point, I think.
Yeah. So it's been great to have those experiences and to be able to, sort things out. And people might go and they might not come back, but that relationship is still there. You're still able to keep that relationship, and I think that's the most important thing, isn't it? That's the bottom line, that our relationships are more important than our problems.
Yeah. And the idea of being okay with people moving and doing things, and that
if they're not our people, God will lead them to their people, and that's ultimately the goal. I think, isn't it? That you find all of us find our people. Yeah.
That's another thing that I learned in training, facilitating groups and stuff, is that it's okay to let people go, and be okay to things to finish, and it's just because it's I would say that I think I talked about this with just them, but have the guilt of not doing the right thing or not doing more. But that's totally gone now. Not that you don't think, sometimes it'd be good if this happened or that happened, but still it's okay for people to leave. And you're still sad, but So we are doing it in our house church, and that's really fun. It's just becoming we're just talking about being family and stuff like that, and that is really awesome. We've
sort of made a who we are statement, and we remind each other of that, we try to remind each other
often
parts of it weekly, but it doesn't always happen weekly. But we remind each other of that, and we're able to pull each other up if we need to, and encourage each other and help each other. So that's a really helpful thing to have. It sort of gives you a bit of a framework of who we actually are and who we want to be.
That's what we learned when we were dealing with problems in our church in Thailand, is we have to have a who we are statement so that we know who we are, and then we can deal with those problems when any of us steps out of it. Then you can ask those questions, pay attention to what's going on. We also did it within our family. It went all right.
Basically it went all right.
Look, some people didn't want to be a part of it, but
there's only one person, really.
But now we know who we are and what we not expect from each other, but how we expect to be treated and how we should treat each other. And it's good. It's good to make who we are. So tell each other who we are, so we know.
And remind each other often.
Yeah. And then we've done that. We also homeschool. I mentioned that before, but we have had those conflicts in the homeschool group as well. And then I did a who we are statement for that, and it makes sense. And then it actually helped a lot. So we can talk about who we are there as well and deal with situations that come outside of that. And it makes it so simple and a really easy way of just saying, oh, I feel like what's going on here is not who we are. We need to talk about that. And deal with the problems. And it just makes a really great framework for it. Otherwise, how can you? It's just your opinion. I think you've done the wrong thing here. No, I haven't. But if we agree to who we are, then it's very simple.
And I think it builds a stronger, more cohesive, resilient community too. Well, that's what I've noticed anyway in the places that we've used it.
Yeah. So even in our homeschool group, like, we found that a lot of people in homeschool are looking for something else. They're not
like spiritual people.
And so some of them are Christians. A lot of them are into other spiritual things, but it's interesting because we found that some people are just drawn to us. And they're not necessarily Christians at all.
No.
Some of them are like actual Satanists, and literally,
actually,
or a witch or something. I don't know. But they're drawn to us, and they leave their children at our house. Excuse me. But we've just found that being this way, being with God, is I always forget this. But what is it when you have the scent?
Oh,
what's the term?
Fragrance.
You have the fragrance of God or something, and people just can't turn away. And that's definitely happening. It
was interesting. Like after church yesterday, I was talking to a friend of mine, and we were just talking about our family and how crazy everyone is. And but she's saying, but like, you're just such an integral part of your family. They all want to be there. They all want to be with you. And I said, but it's always at their request. Not always at their request, but it's often them. Oh, can we come around? Can we get together? Can we do this? Can we do that? And she actually said to me, she said, because they're attracted to the God in you. And I hadn't thought of it.
Be that.
I hadn't thought of it like that before. And I thought, that's quite likely. Well, it is. I'm sure it is what it is.
Because we get together and it's always something crazy going on. It's never.
There's always a drama.
Always drama. And it's just like, it's like that inside of themselves, they're fighting against, like, they know what they want, but it's like the world's just like ripping them away from God all the time. And it's like, it's very frustrating for me, because it's like, we want to get into this stuff, deep stuff, and talk about what's really happening in us, but it just can't happen because there's like a brick wall in front of it. You're just like smashing on it all the time. And then it just becomes a drama, that, and I don't even think they want to have that drama. They want to get past it, but it doesn't let them. That's what I'm noticing. But
and that's like what you say, like, they know what they want. They know what they want, but they just can't get there. But I just sort of feel like it's just, like that perseverance, and like God said, just keep loving.
Like there's nothing special we have to change.
No. It's just that love, I think.
And I'm really excited about my nephew. He's it makes sense to him. So it was pretty cool. We're just keeping on the experiment, keeping on asking God what's next all the time. I find that that's key for me. It just got me through so much. Like, even getting my wife's visa done, it's a huge ordeal. It took from start to finish more than a year. And then, like, I'm not academic. I'm not the sort of person that sits down and does stuff, but I just kept asking God. That was when I started learning about what's next, asking Jesus what's next. And that just got me through step by step, and I finished it. And nobody seems to do that themselves. They usually pay someone to do it. But I just did it with God, with asking that question, what's next? And I haven't stopped asking that. It's just like, what do I do now? What do I do now? And we're starting on the social media, sort of down the social media path. And that's another thing that I've got no idea about, but continuously asking what's next has just got us there, got us to the next place always. That's
something that just popped into my head, was the social media stuff. And like in thinking in the context of our family, because they all, you know, like follow it and watch them. And I'm thinking, you know, they're maybe little things that God uses to open up people's minds. And, you know, even though it's us talking, it's not actually us saying things to them.
And it's a different us because we don't get the opportunity to talk about this when we're together, because it just it never comes. It's just like there's all this other stupid stuff that happens.
And I've noticed a lot of the homeschool community have, you know, logged in and
into ours.
Been watching and stuff as well. So I don't know, like God just uses, you know, he has all these ideas, he puts them in front of you and you think, okay, this is from God, let's do it.
Yeah, I actually had a feeling. I have it because, I had a feeling about this coming up and starting this. It was something about me is difficult. Like I have a difficulty just doing the first part of it. And I know that probably is everybody. But for me, it's quite difficult. I have a great idea. It's like with my music, I want to have a great idea, but I'm scared of doing the next step. It's just like it's hard to start. And now I've started. It's easy to keep going. But I had a feeling about this social media stuff that it'll have an impact, and I'm excited for that. Whatever that's going to be. I feel like it's the beginning of something important.
Definitely. Just the begining of people starting to think about being able to do life differently.
Well, what was the other thing that we're talking about? I remember talking to John about this, but about having courage and I'm so bad with words. I always do this. I'm like, oh, what's that word? And then she has no idea, so we're just like making it up. But like,
let's think of a word.
What's the? I don't know. I just remember the beginning of words. I don't want to go down this path because I'll just keep getting more and more lost. But it came back to the idea of being courageous, and that was what God wanted me to do. And just be courageous and just go ahead and do it, and then see what happens. Like a lot of people that I talk to, they're like, "Well, I want to know everything that's going to happen." But for me, I love the simplicity of not. It's just like, this is the next thing. Just do that. It's like I don't care if I knew what was happening, what would be 10 years from now, it would be boring. And I don't think it would be exciting at all. Like this is like literally, I had this picture of us, like the way that they walk through the desert day by day. And it's just the same as us. We're just going through this day by day. And I'm asking God, what's next? What do I do right now today? Let alone, I'm not going to be worried about next week even, let alone in a year. And that was connected to the world is make a plan, lay out your 10, 20-year plan, 5-year plan, whatever, and then go and take that. But it's like, I don't like that. It doesn't feel good. And I remember trying to do that in times in my life, and it's just like, it's like grating against my soul. I'm just like, I love the idea of just letting it be God every single day. And even within Christian circles, it's a crazy idea for some reason. It's crazy. Like the world tells us don't. The world tells us plan, but God says don't worry. And it's like, but a lot of people I talk to is just struggling with that idea, and I've struggled with it for a long time. But I feel like in the last year, it's sort of making sense to me now. And so I don't know. I don't know how we got there, but
we started off talking about courage, and I sort of like that idea because I know for me, so many things that God has asked me to do have taken a lot of courage. They've been really scary, and taking that first step. And, like that's always the hardest part. But once you do that, he can like lead you on. And, like it's like coming back to Australia, and my heart is for, like these Luke 10 rhythms and things to be spread all across Australia. And like that's a pretty scary thought, and it takes a lot of courage and listening to God to be able to even step into that, and you take a couple of steps forward and it seems like you take a few back, and we're getting somewhere. No, we're not getting anywhere, but it's it just comes down to that courage and just believing God and trusting God. And he was the one that's asked us to to do these things, so just doing them. But like for you know, for me, my vision for Australia would be to see like a Luke 10 coordinator in every state in Australia.
Yeah.
And, you know, every state have a network of like these little Luke 10 communities that know these rhythms and things all, you know, all across each state and then all across the country.
Like, oh, you got a house churches around? I'm like, yeah, we know a bunch.
Yeah. Oh, there's one just down the street. That's like a little bit closer to you than ours is.
Yeah.
But like that's, to me, that is this massive big vision, but God has actually given me pictures of, you know, like what it would look like and how it would work. But it's literally just like one step at a time and then like one or two steps back. But yeah, it's an exciting adventure. And I just feel like some explorer back in the day, like came to Australia. And he actually named Australia the Great Southland of the Holy Spirit. And that's what God just keeps reminding me of, you know, like this is the Great Southland of the Holy Spirit. And I just feel like he's going to do amazing things down here. So it's exciting. And it's exciting that like he's asked us to be part of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though it looks like the opposite at the moment,
it
doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's actually more exciting.
Yeah.
A lot of people are living in fear at the moment.
Lots of people.
But I've been thinking about that lately, and fear just like totally and utterly separates you from God. If that's what you're living in, it's okay to be fearful, and then so I'm going with God, and then be courageous through your fear and step out with God. But if you live in it, then it's got you, and then you're done. And I see a lot of people doing that now, just like living in their fear.
Yeah. But I also have noticed a lot of people like close to us in our house church and that
stepping out of
lived in that fear, but now stepping out of it. Yeah, it's really exciting to see. And then that's when God can, you know, work.
I think that's the cool thing. Like all these scary things that are in the works, it doesn't matter to us. We just like keep asking God what's next. And then we just move forward. It's the most exciting sort of life. And I'm glad that I didn't have to fight my way down from being extremely like caring about like rules, and I was a little bit, but it was funny. It sort of must have been pushed into me, but like because as a kid that wasn't the case. But rules and planning and all, I was never that sort of person. So it was a much easier road for me to get here. So I'm super glad for that.
I feel like that too because I've never been. You know, like people you'd go to a job interview and they say, well, like what's your 5-year plan? Where do you hope to be in 5 years' time? I think, how am I going to know where I'm going to be in 5 years' time?
Even where do you want to be?
Yeah,
and a lot of people probably think it's stupid to be that way, but whatever.
Well, everyone's different, aren't they? You know, we're all made differently and we all work differently and just have to go with who we are and what we are and what God's showing us, I guess.
Totally. Well, what else do we need to talk about? We almost got there to the hour, so anything else?
Not that I can think of. Have you got anything?
No, I don't know if there's anybody watching. There's nothing in the chat, so it doesn't say if people are watching or not. But
well, if there is anyone there and you have any questions, feel free to like type in and we can answer them. But
I don't know. It's been a really fun journey. It's been.
Totally, my connection with Luke 10 has been, like an absolute life changer for me and an absolute life changer to so many other people in the process. Something that I could never have imagined, in my life. It's very exciting.
It's really great because there's so many tools that help you stay intentional. I think that being intentional is what we struggle with most of the time because you're like, I should do this, and then it becomes shoulds and shouldn'ts again, and then it's knowledge and duty again. But it's like just the idea of having a CO2 and just be looking after each other in that way, and then it just helps me to be intentional and get those really simple tools that make it easy. And that's just like Mum said, the Luke 10 for me has helped me just get there and keep it intentional. And like obviously I need a lot of help with that because I have heaps of groups, leader teams, church 101s, facilitating stuff, training people, and it's still a struggle sometimes to stay intentional. And just being intentional is a really awesome thing. So, and I'm glad that I found it, because I would have been, who knows? I don't know.
Yeah, not even.
Yeah, no idea.
Thinking about So what do you think it is that like keeps people from like being intentional? Because I know, like we've taken so many people through Church 101 and they know these rhythms and they love them.
Yeah.
But then they fall away. Why do you think that sort of thing happens?
Yeah, I've been thinking about that in the last couple of days, really. But there's lots of reasons. I think we've talked about it before, but like the idea of being too busy. Too busy. You're not too busy for this stuff. It's super simple. But just people think that they're too busy.
Yeah.
And then that's one. And then I think that I've wrote it in my phone somewhere. It would take me too long to find it. But the idea that some people just have different ideas of what life is. They just want something else, and they don't even want to have that real connection with God. Yeah. There's even a lot of Christians that I think are that way. They just want to go to church and then like do nothing. Yeah. And then I don't know what it is that got us to where we are, but like I want that. I want that. That's all that I want. And that's all that I want my kids to have, and nothing else matters, because if you got this, then you're going to be following God's path. There's no problems like, well, what if they don't do this or they don't do that? It's like, that doesn't matter, because I don't need to worry. Yeah. But I think that the people just have other things that they want from life, and this isn't part of it. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe
they do want it, but just so much like of life crowds in and takes over.
The time stuff. It just
busy and
it just takes over you. Like in fear, maybe that takes your soul out of you, and then life and this grind that we're on for whatever it is, it takes everything out of you, and I think that's how it was designed. Like we need to be able to chill out, stop that, get out of the grind, and if you can't chill out, then you'll struggle to find God.
I know in Australia, like busyness is highly valued. If you're a busy person and you've got no time, for anything, like people like value you highly and think, they're just so productive. They're just such an amazing person. Look, they can keep their job together, keep their family together,
looks like that on the outside.
Yeah, it does look like it on the outside, but not necessarily true. But
when I was at the hospital with Toby the other day, my son had to get some surgery a couple of weeks ago, and then the nurse said, "Oh, where do you go to school?" I said, "Oh, we homeschool." He's like, and then she said, "Oh, you're brave," and I'm like, "Oh, I feel like it's the opposite. If you don't homeschool, you're brave." I would, for me, that's a scary thought, to send the kids to school in these times, and it didn't do me any good, that's for sure. Yeah. But I don't know. That's pretty cool. It looks like there's nobody here, so we'll just leave it at that, and that's probably it. Anything else?
Yeah, no, not really. But if you, if you're ever thinking of Thailand and Australia, and want to pray and ask God to do whatever He's doing in both those nations, that would be really exciting. I'd appreciate that.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right. See ya.
Bye.